right, so I was at the event at the Y
Right.
the other day, and you told some amazing stories,
Right.
some of which I'm going to ask you to
It's
repeat.
okay.
But at this point in time, would you ever have expected what's happening now to be happening with all this excitement about something that's 50
I
years
was
old?
when I got the call in September about coming to the fest. They claimed I was asked once before, and I said yes, and I didn't show up. And they said, you guys, that's not my style. 57 years in the business, I make a commitment. Fly 3,000 miles. To do a show.
Yeah, you living in LA now?
Yeah, I live in LA. We knew the 50th was going to be big because Andrew Salt, who owns the rights to the Sullivan Library and the Sullivan stuff, warned me that, you're going to be the poster boy. I said, yeah, come on. He said, no. He said, all the requests are starting to come in, like in, what month are we in now? February, January, December. Around the December period, I started getting these phone calls from all these people. And he said that, that your name was coming up at CBS. And I was the first person that the CBS people, called about doing a special. I know Ken Ehrlich is a great producer.
Yeah.
And they called my house and said, look, we're doing a special, and Andrew Salt, and we want you to be on. I said, sure, that's great. Thank
So
you.
now, how did you find yourself working for the Ed Sullivan Show as of 1960?
Look, everything that happened in my life, is a blessing, okay? I started in 57 CBS. I came from a background that, everything that's happened to me is cool. I was brought up, when I was born, my mother died at childbirth.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
And my dad, who, kind of blamed me for everything that happened, I guess, and my grandmother and grandfather, Sicilian grandmother and grandfather, brought me up in Brooklyn in a 4-room railroad apartment with a bathtub in the kitchen. And they finally, when I got old enough, they put a shower in for me. So anything that's happened in my lifetime, it's you have no idea. My life has been not only Sullivan, but I played tennis with Prince Rainier. I had lunch with Brace Kelly.
How did those things happen? What? How did you? It's like
I
Zelig.
don't know. Well, I'll be honest with you. People have said in books and everything that being from New York and being a kid, street kid, I had a real sixth sense about things and people.
I was going to say that's probably what.
And people said that I was born to be a talent person. It was my personality or whatever,
So you were tough enough to deal with all these egotistical big people. It didn't throw you. It didn't phase you.
No. Didn't throw me at all. It did throw me in the beginning because I was a nervous wreck. I remember the first time I did cue cards, Harvey Stone, I'll never forget it. He was screaming at me as I was writing, and he was so hyper. He was perspiring all over me. And
Who's Harvey Stone?
Well, you will remember. He's a comic from the 50s.
Oh, I knew a lot of those comics, but I never heard of Harvey Stone.
Yeah, I think it was Harvey Stone. I think his name was Harvey Stone. Yeah.
I knew Sam Levinson. I knew Myron Cohen.
Myron Cohen, Corbett Monica, and John Biner and Pryor.
So what did you like better, the comedians or the musicians?
I liked Peggy Lee, Frank Sinatra.
Of course.
Groups like, I was a big fan of Blood, Sweat, and Tears. I liked the Association. I liked the Mamas and Papas.
Did they all sang live too, right?
Everyone sang live.
Yeah, they're backing tracks sometimes?
No.
Never?
Well, maybe once or twice in production numbers, when they...
So when this whole Beatle thing started, it was like just another group coming on, although there was some.
Well, we know. Well, we knew. In the summer of '63, we used to go over in the summer to tape a lot of acts, like novelty acts, because it was cheaper to bring them all to one location, so we can tape them and edit them and then roll them into the shows. So we were aware of them in really March or April. I wasn't. I really basically did not know it until I heard about them in the office, because what we had Peter Pritchard. We had an agent in London.
Right.
And we had Jack Babb, who was our talent person in New York, who I replaced in '66. Then we had Bob Prick, the producer, and Sullivan. So Sullivan would come over during the summer and hang out with Peter, and they would go to the south of France and hang out. So Peter started telling Ed, there's this group here, in March or April that had the #1 record, and they're starting to really happen. Well, I mean, you can't be. First of all, Paul and John told me they never wanted to come to America until they had a hit record, because what. And another thing is, we would never have booked them. I mean, Jack Babb, my talent guy, went to see him twice and turned him down.
Didn't get it.
Well, not only did he get it, but here's what happens is that in order for them to come over and do the Sullivan Show, immigration, we had to prove to immigration that they were unique enough for us not to use an American group. So, I mean, it was Freddie and the Dreamers and one of those guys. We say, yes, Tom Jones or Petula Clark. Well, the reason we're bringing them over is because they have the #1 record. They have, whatever. They had nothing. I mean, George came over in July of that year. They already had released 3 songs, and they went nowhere.
George who came over?
George Harrison.
By himself?
Yeah, he went to visit his sister.
Oh.
In the summer.
I had no idea.
You don't know the story?
No. What's the story?
Well, that's why I'm here, I guess.
That's a good story.
So he came over that summer, and he went to all these record stores, and he said, I'm with the Beatles, and they looked at him like he was insane. And he came back on the plane, came back to London. He said to the guys, we're dead in the water. No one's even heard of us.
And now that was Capitol wouldn't release the record, but VJ did release material early.
They released a bunch of records, and they found out that the owner of the company went bankrupt because he gambled away all his money.
Right, those were maybe regional
who turned him down all the time was Alan Livingston, the president. But not only him, but his wife, who was Nancy Olson, who was a movie star, who played opposite William Holden in Sunset Boulevard.
Wow,
She was a love interest.
And she was making
making the decisions and
smart.
said, these guys are all, la, and he kept on turning him down. What really happened that really turned the page with Sullivan was that Peter kept on sending these memos, and all of a sudden, CBS, NBC, ABC were doing film crews going over there and started shooting stuff, and they were getting Cronkite and all these stations.
Really?
Yeah. So when Sullivan heard about they did the Val Parnell show, which is a variety show, and they drew something like 15 million people. I mean, that's a lot for London.
Sure. Now, was Ed Sullivan's interest in this simply the numbers, or did he feel some cultural thing?
He had like a gut feeling, maybe. I don't know. I mean, he's like a newspaper guy. There's a whole story that he landed at the airport, and they landed, and he met him and booked him, which is all total BS. And he booked your readers. It's totally crazy because.
Why would he do that? I mean, that's
well.
not...
I mean, if he did, I mean, logically, it was October, and we said, "What are you kidding? We're in the middle of our taping season." Supposedly, that weekend that they talked about him being there, we ran a tape show, but we were still trying to figure why would this 67-year-old man want to jump on a plane and go to London to do something and then come back? I mean, it just didn't make any sense to us.
Right.
So he started hearing about them. Peter was sending him all these clippings, and then he saw a clip of them on the Royal Command for the Queen.
With the rattle of
rattle of the jewelry.
Yeah.
And
well, that's such a big thing. He had to see but no one else in America seemed to see it.
No, but what happened was Brian jumped on. Brian said, "Look, I want to hold your hand. It's going to be the record that's going to happen." They already had sold like 250,000 copies in 2 days in London. And he said, "This is the record that's going to happen." And Paul and John agreed. So he jumped. Peter Pritchard called Sullivan, arranged a meeting. He flew over and had a meeting with Sullivan, and they worked out this 3 shots at $3,500 a piece, 5 round-trip tickets. But unbeknownst to my boss, Bob Precht, his son-in-law, was a producer.
Right.
Something fell through the cracks. He wasn't aware of what was happening. So Sullivan already made the deal when Bob went over to.
It had been done already?
No, he made the deal. Sullivan did the deal.
Oh, I see.
But he didn't tell his son-in-law, the producer, who got really pissed off about it.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
Why wasn't I told about this?
Yeah, and what was the answer?
Nothing. Didn't answer.
Yeah.
You know?
So they come over and they do this show, and there's a rehearsal, and George got sick
He didn't get sick at the rear. He got sick on the plane.
on the way over. He didn't like to fly, apparently.
Well, he didn't like to fly, but he also didn't. He got really sick, and when they got to the plaza, they called the doctor and said, if you want this guy to be ready for Sunday, he's got to stay in bed tonight and all day Saturday. And we're thinking, oh my God, we have a dress rehearsal on Saturday, and they're going to be live on Sunday, plus tape a segment. So
Now, did you have audiences at all of these dress rehearsals?
oh yeah,
And was it the same kind of hysteria and screaming?
oh yeah,
It was.
yeah. It was insanity. It was crazy,
You'd never
People
seen
at the
anything
ho-
like that in that theater
Oh,
before.
no.
Not even Topo Gigio had.
Yeah, or Elvis Presley. I mean, it was screaming when Presley was there, but nothing. I mean, when Presley was there, they never barricaded four blocks. Had,
Yeah.
police and 50 policemen.
Now, were you there when Buddy Holly played?
Yeah, I held cue cards for him.
You what?
I held the cue cards for him.
Wow. And how was that?
Well, I didn't know.
You weren't a fan of his at that point?
I was.
What were you
You say I
using?
was 23 years.
Yeah.
I was a 23-year-old kid that was going to be a professional baseball player, and I fell into the Marla Lewis, the producer of the Sullivan Show, used to deliver mail to him, and he took a liking to me. Called me.
Really?
Yeah.
So that's how you got in there?
Yeah, that's how I got in there.
Wow.
He called me in. He said, blah, 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 blah. We're looking for a guy to do something on the weekends with Sullivan. And my secretary's telling me you're really a nice guy and you're polite. And I said, once you come down on Sunday and I'll introduce you and see, can you print? I go, yeah. And they said, well, you going to, I said, look, I'm working, at CBS, basically in the mailroom. Then I got a job in the film department. And that's basically how I started with him.
Yeah, I mean, watching you on the stage there Thursday night, you obviously have a real strong affinity for people, and it came out that.
Well, that's nice of you to say. I just.
No, your sincerity was really
Really?
really.
You can feel it, huh?
Oh, yeah, you kidding? You're very charismatic in that sense.
Oh, thank you.
You're much more people-oriented than I am, which is why I sit in my
No,
basement
it's,
listening to
well, I went to the American Theater Wing and I did some modeling.
Oh, okay,
in
that's-
all,
yeah, it's all coming out now.
in all
Okay.
honesty, I made a lot of money as a model, but I hated the. I was the crew cut, blue eyed, guys
yeah,
with
yeah,
all,
yeah.
John Glenn look when
Yeah.
Glenn was happening, and I made. They used to use me as an extra on the show, on the Sullivan Show.
So you have to write a book about your exploits.
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
when
when book is mentioned in front of my wife, it's good for
she doesn't want you, she didn't want to share you with the world.
No, she's private and she thinks we've had a great run and we got enough money to keep us happy. I don't have to be a billionaire.
No, but it's not for the money. It's
Well, I know it's not
the
for the
stories.
money, but
are-
in L.A. it's all about the money.
Yeah,
But,
I know. I lived there 8 years.
Yeah, but here's the joke, okay? This is the joke. When people are talking about billions and Gates and the Sandy Gallons and all these guys
Sure,
in L.A.,
sure.
my son turns to me and says, "Dad, do you realize there are 8 billion people in the world, and you and Neil, who never got to sing because they called him away, is the only human being that actually stood on stage
Yeah.
with the Beatles and had them perform,
Yeah,
And the
I mean-
highlight was I'm on that special tonight, and I want to tell you, I almost cried. Is when what happened was I taped the special in the month before, and then they rolled it in that night when they were doing all the music groups, and Maroon 5 and Alicia Keys
Sure,
and
sure.
Annie Lennox. They played my bit back, and the people went crazy because